Hey guys, in this video I'm discussing Nikon's announcement of the Nikon full-frame mirrorless camera. Now, there's a lot of speculation around this. We did finally get a tease from Nikon a week or so ago, of what this camera is going to look like and possibly what some of the new features and performance of this camera is going to be. Now, I think this camera could really compete and possibly destroy Sony, but not completely, right? So Sony's way ahead of the game. Sony definitely is the king of mirrorless cameras right now. We all know that. So they're not going to completely put Sony out of business. It's just not happening. But I think this new Nikon camera could compete. So what I want to talk about right now first is the speculation as to what this camera or cameras are going to be. So Nikon announced this new mirrorless camera, and there was all these rumors going around as to what this, the specs were going to be and all that kind of stuff. Well, there was also another rumor saying that Nikon would also release a 45 megapixel mirrorless camera that would compete with the Sony A7R III, and it may even be medium format. Now, if it's medium format, it's going to compete more with the Fuji GFX, and once again, amazing camera. Fuji has had their hand in mirrorless for a little while as well, so I don't think Nikon in any case is gonna destroy them, but they may compete and may actually sell more if they execute this correctly. Now, we saw a big megapixel camera with the Nikon D850. This one's a 45 megapixel camera. So it's certainly possible to have that many megapixels. And so I'm hoping what Nikon does, if they do release two cameras, that they're careful about it, right? They really think about what they're doing and target more of like medium format photographers if they go ahead and do a 45 megapixel camera. The other camera I think that Nikon will release is rumored to be 24 megapixels, and it is supposed to compete with the likes of the Sony A7 III and those type of cameras. This is certainly possible, I think. I think Nikon could definitely be head-to-head with Sony on this entry-level full-frame mirrorless camera, but we'll see, because Nikon could seriously screw this up. The next thing I want to talk about is how Nikon could potentially compete and maybe be above the Sony mirrorless realm. Now, what features would they have to add, in my opinion, in order to compete significantly and to sell more cameras than Sony? Well, here's my thoughts. Firstly, Nikon's going to have to step it up in the video game. They can't keep going the direction they're going if they want to compete with Sony or any other major camera company when it comes to video. Now, Nikon did bring some upgrades to some of their newer cameras like the D500, D5, and D850 with 4K video. This has 4K at 30 frames, and I believe it's full frame. Yes, it is full frame video, 4K. But that's not enough at all. Here's what Nikon needs to add in their video area. Firstly, they need a better autofocus system in video. Now, before all of you go, oh, if you're really a videographer or whatever, you're going to use manual focus. Well, yeah, that's true. But here's the thing. For people like me, a beautiful autofocus system in video significantly helps me produce my videos because most of the time I'm only doing this on my own. So Nikon needs to release some form of, like Canon has a dual pixel autofocus system. They need to release that in this camera. I think Nikon actually has patented some form of a dual pixel autofocus. But anyway, what we need is a camera and lenses that smoothly rack into focus and track the subject as they're doing their video or whatever. So definitely a dual pixel autofocus system needs to be introduced in this mirrorless camera. If Nikon doesn't do this, I seriously think they could screw up. Okay, the next thing as far as video goes, they need to release some form of log, right? Now, there's a lot of little cheats and all that kind of stuff you can do with these cameras, like provide special picture settings, the picture control settings, where you can flatten it as flat as you can, but we really need a true log, something that's extremely flat for color grading. That would be significantly better. As Nikon, for me, the colors are way too vibrant, and even if I turn the saturation down in video, it doesn't help that much. So we need dual pixel autofocus and log in this new camera in order for it to really compete with the Sony. The next thing I want to talk about is better low light performance. Now, I think we'll see a great competitor in Nikon on the 24 megapixel camera, because typically how it works is if it's lower megapixels, you have better ISO performance at the higher levels. Now, what I'm hoping Nikon will do is do another BSI sensor in this camera, like they did with the D850. That would be beautiful, and I think we could see a great improvement in low light performance. We saw this in the D500, but I think Nikon could go even higher in this autofocus. Let's talk, or this ISO performance, sorry. Let's also talk about the eye autofocus as well. I want to talk about autofocus for a minute. Sony has this awesome system called eye autofocus, where basically one of the little autofocus squares will lock onto an eye and literally track this. It's sort of like 3D tracking in this, but it's much more refined and it's just much better in my opinion. Excellent system. If Nikon doesn't have some form of live view autofocus like the eye autofocus, it's pretty much not going to come anywhere near Sony's level of refinement and expertise in this part of the camera. So they need to release some form of autofocus that will track very smoothly and accurately subjects in the viewfinder and on the screen. The next thing I want to talk about concerning autofocus is their adapter. Now, in Nikon's press release, they released a kind of a tease for an adapter that would be developed in order to adapt your F mount lenses to this new mount, which I think they're going to call the Z mount. I think pretty much we've all decided that's what Nikon's calling that. And so I'm hoping that the autofocus on this mount will help you provide a way of using your F mount lenses on the new mirrorless system and still get pretty much the same results you would get to a native Z mount lens. So hopefully we'll see that there. The next thing I want to talk about is the new Z mount. Now, this Z mount is supposedly going to be able to house at least 1.2 lenses. That's f1.2. This will be huge for Nikon. If Nikon can do this, then it's going to improve low light performance, not by much, but by a little bit. And it's also going to allow newer lenses to be released that could have lower apertures than what we currently have. In the F mount, the lowest you can currently go is f1.4. So to have a f1.2 will be awesome, and it will compete with Canon and Sony alike. And actually, if you want to see this mount, you can go to NikonRumors.com. They have a lot of new photos since yesterday showing the camera, and they were getting, I guess, press release photos of this new mirrorless camera. The mount's huge. I mean, it's at least 10 millimeters larger than the F mount. And so it's just gigantic. And so we're hoping that means we will see f1.2 lenses on this new mirrorless system by Nikon. The final thing I want to talk about on this Nikon that will help it compete with Sony and possibly, just put it over the top would be the Nikon's battery life. Now, if Nikon can provide a battery that gives you tons of battery life, then that would be awesome. And actually, the reason why mirrorless cameras have to have most of the time so many batteries is because they're using a combination of EVF, which is basically, how I describe it, a mini TV in the viewfinder. In the DSLRs, you have an optical viewfinder that is completely non-electronic, right? Besides a couple little features you'll see, or it'll say like the exposure or whatever. It's completely just literally looking through the lens. There's a little mirror, shoots up to that, to a prism, and then you see your image. Well, with mirrorless, you don't have a mirror, right? So you've got to have this little LED screen in order to see what you're actually shooting if you're looking through the viewfinder. So if Nikon can do a longer battery life on this camera, that even though we'll have an EVF that'll be dragging the battery out, if they can release a battery that will go for almost all day long, they will definitely be able to compete with Sony. The final thing I want to talk about is kind of some concerns I have. Nikon did release in their press release this statement, which says, through the development of this new mirrorless camera, Nikon reaffirms our commitment to providing photographers with the ability to capture images that are richer and more vivid than ever before. The reason this concerns me is because the way they worded this makes it sound like Nikon is still focusing on the picture-taking side of this camera. Now, like I said, even to come remotely close to the Sony, they're going to have to improve their video. They're going to have to step it up completely. So what does this mean? Well, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have that dual pixel autofocus of some sort. They're going to have a log of some sort. If Nikon wants to make videographers happy, this is what they're going to have to do. So do I really think we're going to see this? Unfortunately, no, but what do you think? Do you think we're going to see a dual pixel autofocus system or a, log, maybe in-log or whatever they're going to call it? Let me know in the comments below. Guys, thanks for watching, and check out Nikon's full announcement on August 23rd. You can go check out their countdown. It's really exciting. I'm really excited to see where Nikon goes with this mirrorless camera, and hopefully they'll surprise all of us. So guys, thanks for watching. Keep at this channel, keep subscribing, keep helping me produce videos just like this. See you later. Belingo out.